Please be seated. The Secretary will read the third order.
Wait on vote for Community Safety, Western Cape Adjustments Appropriation Bill.
I see the Minister, Minister Windy.
Speaker, Premier, colleagues in the Cabinet, honourable members of this House, ladies and gentlemen, some of our officials from the Department. Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, sorry. The desire of every resident in this province is to live in an environment that is safe and secure, where they don't have to be fearful that they might be attacked, injured, or worse, even killed. They dream of a safer Western Cape. The unfortunate reality is that many people are living in fear, and in fact, in many communities in this province, residents say that they feel like hostages in their own homes, as the violence, shooting and muggings make it impossible for them to leave their homes. In the 2017-18 Victims of Crime Survey, this also points out a dire picture of how residents view crime in the province, with 84% of respondents believing that it has either remained the same or getting worse. Honourable Speaker, this is completely understandable. When you look at any front page of a newspaper, you find story after story of people being assaulted, mugged, or killed. Indeed, a dire reality that we are all faced with. It is for this reason that it is welcoming to note that our main appropriation of 316,617,000 rand has been adjusted upwards to 343,424,000 rand. This is an adjustment or an increase of 26.807 million rand. This upward adjustment is very important, as our 2017-18 crime stats clearly demonstrates that there is a need to address crime, especially gangsterism, in our communities. The stats show that murder increased by 12.6%, attempted murder increased by 9.2%. 84% of all gang-related murders across South Africa were committed in this province. 22% of all murders are due to gang violence. Speaker, at the moment, we are in the midst of 16 days of activism. This is activism and a campaign of no violence against women and children. And it will be amiss of me not to mention that domestic violence is the cause of 5.6% of all murders in our province. Speaker, it is our poor communities, it is the vulnerable and the innocent that is facing and is experiencing the brunt of these violent acts. As a department, our aim to achieve community safety, we will continue to do this by promoting professional policing through effective oversight as legislated, capacitate safety partnerships with communities and stakeholders, meaning the whole of society approach, while also promoting safety in all public buildings and spaces. Speaker, we understand that it is impossible for the police to ensure our safety by themselves, even though this is their mandate. If you are not given the necessary resources, as the national government should, then of course your task becomes very difficult. We have allocated 7 million rand from Programme 2, of which 5 million rand will be used to combat community and social unrest. And Speaker, as we speak right now, there's unrest at the moment in Malmesbury happening as we speak. Businesses are closing their doors and people are marching through Malmesbury at the moment. And these are the kind of things that are happening at the moment across communities in this province. We have all witnessed the increased number of violent protests throughout our province. The Overstrand and Saldanha areas come to mind, where protesters vandalized, destroyed, and looted public property. This is valued in the millions. Infrastructure that is supposed to serve the community is being destroyed, and you ask yourself, to what end? I implore honourable members of this House to engage with your constituents so that alternative mechanisms are used to address these issues that communities might face, instead of these violent and unlawful protests that we are experiencing. To strengthen the purpose and functioning of our safety kiosks, Speaker, 2 million rand will be used for Wi-Fi, linking these kiosks to police stations. And Speaker, just in the last few days, I've engaged with a number of community neighbourhood watches, and whether it was the 61 neighbourhood watches that received accreditation 2 nights ago, or the neighbourhood watches that I met in Philippi East, or the neighbourhood watches I met, 6 of them last night, every single time you engage with these neighbourhood watches, it's about enabling them to do their job, and of course that is where this province steps in. That 2 million rand, I can assure you, will definitely be something well used by these neighbourhood watches. In Programme 4, Security Risk Management, an allocation of 17.750 million rand has been appropriated. As part of the revenue retention, 1.272 million is allocated for the operationalisation of the safety plan in the Saldanha Bay municipality, and this again a whole-of-society approach project. Speaker, technology and innovation can play a major role in combating crime in our province, and we have to embrace this. This is why 750,000 rand will be used for safety and security technology, which is a further effort to ensure that residents are protected. Just yesterday, the Premier announced the public Wi-Fi service that will be expanded and upgraded, giving more residents access to faster broadband. It is through these types of innovation that we will be able to further enhance the utilization of technology to also improve people's safety and security. From day one, I have been stating that we need to effectively support our volunteer community safety structures. It is through these structures that property-related crimes, which includes residential and business burglary, and the theft out of motor vehicles have a year-on-year reduction of 6.8%. And I really commend these community watchers in the work that they do, in the partnerships that they build, specifically with their communities, but also with the crime-fighting forces like the Metro Police and the South African Police Services. I'm also therefore pleased that 2 million rand will be allocated to the professionalisation of neighbourhood watches. I've been travelling around the province, meeting with various community safety structures, and what struck me most of all is that all neighbourhood watches are not on the same level. We want to ensure that each structure has the basic equipment needed to be effective in their functions. These are committed men and women who freely give of their time to safeguard their communities, and they deserve to be supported fully. I've had the opportunity to go out on patrol with a number, and if I think about the Lavender Hill Steenberg Neighbourhood Watch and Community Policing Forums, I saw firsthand the difference that the presence of these individuals in these communities are making in their streets. So we have these community safety structures in our areas, and they are quite effective. But we still need to see drugs and guns removed. We see them seeping through our communities and are causing havoc, are causing pain, and are really, really the driving force of what is holding everybody captive at the moment. Speaker, I'm of the view that through our allocation of 15 million rand for a provincial canine dog unit and highway patrol safety initiative, we will be able to not only make a difference or a dent in these transfers of illegal activities, but also be able to attack directly the supply line. In due course, further details will be made available about the operational deployment of these units. We have been highlighting the fact that our men and women in blue are under-resourced in this province, Speaker, and this curtails what we should be able to achieve. We know that in this province we are already 4,500 police officers too short. We know that our role is just an oversight role, but I have committed to General Jula, our police commissioner, that I will fight with him to ensure that police in this province acquire the necessary support. They're not that they need, but it is also declared by law. Taking it further, I'd like to say today that we offer the National Police Minister, Minister Becky Cele, 5 million rand for SAPS reservists so that they can assist our dedicated police officers in creating a safer Western Cape. And we really need to make a strong point here. And if someone will just pass me this check. And I wonder if anybody in the ANC would be prepared to hand this over to your minister. I'm making 5 million rand available to support the police officers in our province. Speaker, just last week,
Order. 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 Allow the Premier now to allow the Premier candidate. Minister Winnie may continue.
Thank you, Speaker. I thought it was 36. The Speaker, just last week, the Provincial Ombudsman reported back to this Parliament that in the last 3 financial years, this province has lost 326 police reservists. This translates into 5,216 policing hours that are lost, gone, and never to be retrieved. Over the last decade, the number of active reservists serving the police in our communities decreased by 84%. In the 2015-16 financial year, the number of active reservists totaled 1,050, but this year the total number of active reservists totaled 724, a decline of 31%. This report came after the chairperson of the Standing Committee on Community Safety, Murray Wenger, requested that the investigation be launched into the decline of reservist numbers in the Western Cape. And thank you very much for that, Chair. Police reservists play a critical role in assisting the SAP's functioning as a force multiplier, Mr. Dugmore. The role cannot be underestimated. So, Mr. Dugmore, just listen to this. For 10 years, Mr. Dugmore, we have been asking for this gang unit to be reinstated for 10 years, while thousands of people have been murdered in this province. Thousands have been murdered.
Order. Order.
So, Speaker, Minister Taylor yesterday said that we are willing to work hand in hand in crime fighting. And he said that when he came to our 2-day conference. He said that he has been saying that we want to work together. We had, and we'll talk about perhaps this just a bit later, because I haven't heard whether the Honourable Rasool has retracted this yet or not, or he accepts that he was lying when he put out this press statement. Everywhere it is, talks about how we are supposed to work together. And it is quite ironic that the Minister was quoted in today's Cape Argus newspaper. The first thing that was asked is when yesterday the Minister was reporting back in Mitchell's Plain on the anti-gang unit. This unit that he says that everyone is working together on. Of course he can report back. He was asked a direct question. He was asked a direct question by a journalist to say, why is Docs or Windy not here? And he denied, he said that I had been invited. He said that I had been invited because this is not a political interaction. This is something where the National Minister has said that the province and National will be working together on, right? He was asked directly why I wasn't invited, and he said there, in open public, Windy was invited. He said it. He said Windy was invited. That again, just as Rasool, is a blatant lie. And very interesting, after he was asked the question, at 12:27 p.m. yesterday, because he said I was invited, but at 12:27 p.m. an invitation was sent to my office. But that's not the point that I want to make, because the invitation that was sent to my office was an invitation that was actually inviting me to accompany Minister Becky Clele on Monday as he goes to Port Elizabeth to talk about and report back on the gang unit. Because it says the office of the Secretariat must invite the MEC.
Order.
The office of the Secretariat must invite the MEC. Today, as I stand here, I still have not been invited. So again, the Minister lied on the platform. But Speaker.
Order.
No, they weren't. Mitchell's Plain wasn't happy because they weren't even allowed to ask a question. They weren't allowed to ask questions.
Please come to order.
But the Minister went on in the meeting to say that we do check the availability of MECs. This is a blatant untruth being told by a supposed honourable minister. Speaker, the minister further was quoted by saying, policing is one area where the Constitution and legislation put the onus on the National Office to do policing work. The honourable members across the floor have for ages in this House, and the Honourable Rasool in this article keeps on saying that this is a provincial responsibility where the province has failed. The minister then said, and he quite clearly said, that policing is a national competency. He quite clearly said it in answering this in Mitchell's Plain. So that quite clearly draws the line of where we say that we need to work together. They do not want to work together. They want to play politics. Whether this House says it's our failure, he quite clearly takes responsibility for that. So this House must think very carefully about what they say into the future. And my warning to this House is that we do not play politics with people's lives. We do not play politics with people's lives. We will be watching this 10-year call for the gang unit. We also note how even the headlines here, the anti-gang unit, is illegal because it was done in a 2-day discussion in the Minister's office. There have been 11 months worth of work.
Order.
There have been 11 months worth of work on the anti-gang unit, and even that unit in this province was not consulted, Mr. Speaker. So this House must be very careful when they say they do not play politics with crime in this province. They absolutely play politics with crime in this province. But again, Mr. Speaker, I reiterate that we in this province want to partner. We want to build partnerships. We make money available for these partnerships so that we can work together between the province and the city and this national police force. We want to work together to reduce crime. We want to make sure that we actually build a safer Western Cape. Speaker, it cannot be denied that crime has a major impact on all areas of our lives. If we are to achieve our aim, which is to ensure that our residents are able to live a life of quality, a life of opportunity, a life that they deserve, we need to make sure that this is a Western Cape, a safer Western Cape, a safer Western Cape for everybody in this province. I thank you.
The Honourable Wenger.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. The Department of Community Safety has received 9 consecutive clean audits, and the department has received so many accolades from both national and provincial awards that it probably needs to procure a new trophy cabinet. Speaker, I wish to begin by welcoming Minister Windy to the portfolio, and in his first month he has already made a significant impact on this department. Speaker, this must be the most exciting budget adjustment for the Department of Community Safety this term. In a context of continued revenue shortfalls, the fact that this government has prioritised safety with an additional allocation of 27 million rand speaks volumes. Even though the provincial government has no operational control over the police, it recognises its role in police oversight, ensuring professional policing, and its important role in increasing safety in our communities.
Order. I want to be able to hear the member speaking.
Ensuring safety underpins our dream of a successful South Africa, and our dream of one South Africa for all. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to highlight some of the projects that this adjusted budget will fund. The police say that they are being swamped with documents that need to be certified and which takes up time to be used for fighting crime. The Paarl East Station Commander, Colonel Mabuti Stevens, was quoted as saying that on some days there were so many people waiting in a queue outside his police station that he actually had to withdraw officers from the street to help clear the backlog. The police spoke, this government listened. 1.5 million rand is being set aside in this budget for the Western Cape government employees who will volunteer to certify documents at police stations. While willing Western Cape government employees will be performing the civic duty on a volunteer basis, the money set aside will be used for setting up desks and stationery. This is a textbook example of better together, if ever there were one. In another example of better together, where citizens and government collaborate to make a better society, neighbourhood watches must be that shining example. 2 million rand additional funding is being made available to assist neighbourhood watches with equipment and training. The department, along with residents of this province, work together as Team South Africa, because crime prevention strategies are only successful with community participation. Speaker, in an exciting development, 15 million rand is being set aside for the establishment of a provincial canine unit. This is something that I've long been advocating for, and the budget for this support unit is most welcome. The canine unit will be able to support the SAPS, the Metro Police, as well as provincial traffic to stop the flow of drugs on our Western Cape roads and to make a dent in the trafficking of poached marine products. In another attempt to help the police, this government is making 5 million rand available for SAPS police reservists. Speaker, through my oversight role, I exposed in 2015 that the number of police reservists in our province had declined by 66% since 2008. And in continuing to monitor this, it was clear by last year that the situation had not improved, it had gotten worse. The number had dropped to an 84% decline since 2008. It was then that I was compelled to request the Ombudsman to formally investigate it, and he's confirmed that in the last 3 financial years, there's been a 31% decline in the number of police reservists. But what is the opportunity cost? What does this mean? It equates to a total of 217 policing days lost over 3 years. And in 2017-18 alone, as much as 109 policing days were lost. The equivalent of a third of a year of policing was lost because of reservist cuts. But this government recognizes the important role that policing support volunteers play, such as neighbourhood watchers and police reservists. Because this government subscribes to the whole of society approach, it has made money available to assist the SAPS to deploy police reservists in our communities over the festive season, which is when we know crime and specifically murder increase. What is worth noting, Mr. Speaker, is that the money for reservists comes from the over-collection of fines relating to liquor law infringements. So this 5 million rand is going directly towards crime fighting. And this province is the only one that fully uses the extent of Section 206, the powers contained therein, contrary to what members or our colleagues on the other side of the bench may say. We are the only province to have provincial legislation for oversight in the form of the Western Cape Community Safety Act. We are the only province to have a police ombudsman, and we've rationalised neighbourhood watches in law. And in fulfilling the Western Cape Community Safety Act, I'd like to congratulate the department and the minister on the inaugural safety awards that occurred recently, in which valiant men and women in blue are recognised for their contribution to society. Mr. Speaker, in absentia, I'd like to thank Minister Plato for his work in the department over the course of the financial year. I'd also like to thank the Community Safety Head of Department, Mr. Morris, and his team, the Provincial Police Ombudsman's Office, the Liquor Authority, and the Cape Town Metro Police for having appeared before our committee on several occasions during the year and for their transparency. I equally thank Lieutenant General Jula and the Provincial SAPS management team for having appeared before our committee and being accountable to Parliament. I further wish to thank the Standing Committee members for their constructive engagements and productive participation. And I'm grateful for the parliamentary staff, specifically Mr. Wasim Matthews, Ms. Mary-Ann Burgess, and Mr. Ben Dasa for their professionalism and assistance throughout the year past. I also thank Mr. Chigomi for his research assistance. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, this budget adjustment for the Department of Community Safety is fully supported by the Democratic Alliance.
Thank you, Member. The Honourable Lekker.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I think, I'm sure you won't repeat that. I think the biggest problem is having a different understanding of what the role of this department is supposed to be in keeping our communities safe. For the DA, this is merely a department to monitor police work, mainly for the failures in the province. This is why majority of the spending of this department is on things that will not involve taking physical action to keep our people safe in communities. This department would rather spend money on youth religious safety programs and Chrysalis Academy, as well as the court-watching briefs, instead of investing money towards fighting crime structures in communities like the Bambanani program. For the ANC, this was the understanding of what is supposed to have been. Section 2206 was pushed to the limits. The ANC is of the view that we will only win the fight against crime if only we can allow the crime-fighting structures to play its role. For many years, the DA did not take this department serious. It was amongst the least funded in the province. Only now, a year before the elections, that it is given an increase of 26.8 million in the form of the slush funds. The MEC Windy slush funds will be used for safety initiatives in times of community and social unrest. This means that instead of spending the budget on safety communities and safety of communities, MEC Windy would rather spend the funds on policing communities not to protest against their grievances. More of those funds will be used for Wi-Fi at safety kiosk. Speaker, another will be used for professionalizing neighborhood watches. Neighborhood watches are fully funded and resourced skewed by this department, while CPFs are underfunded. This is wrong, Speaker, and it must be condemned. The department and the MEC know about the challenges faced by the CPFs in this province. With the new MEC, I had hoped that new relations would have been forged, but instead, there has been a point where I think the MEC is continuing on his predecessors while capacitating neighborhood watches who come from the affluent areas. Speaker, over 15 million of the slush funds will be used for the K9 unit. We went on an oversight in the K9 unit where we were told of all the challenges the unit is faced, including the request that was made of the people that need dogs for this unit. That was 2 years ago. In all that period, there was no interest from this DA-led department to assist that unit. And now, all of a sudden, they're showing an interest. Indeed, this is a budget to make the failed premier candidate to look good. This is a budget for the DA's 2019 campaign. This is to give time and space to the premier candidate to go to communities and launch his campaign. We are not surprised that the DA's candidate has been deployed to this department. The DA organizer who was recently employed in the department, which is one form of the cadre deployment of the Democratic Alliance. This is why over 202 million for bursaries and operating licenses have been shifted to the MEC office. This shows lack of commitment for personal development for its employees. Speaker, over 564,000 from Chrysalis Academy has been shifted to the Youth Religious Safety Program. And this is only in our view, as a one-day soup kitchen and compensation of the DA-aligned pastors is another indication that this budget is indeed for campaigning. Speaker, the DA dumps money into these programs and does not bother to conduct impact assessment of this program. Speaker, the Premier candidate thinks this is a federal state. I say that because of the 2.3 million that is earmarked for the online intelligence. What nonsense is that? At first, it was the Zille spook, and now the Premier candidate already has a budget of its own spook. The DA wanted to militarize youth through Chrysalis Academy over the past year. The interest in the program seems to be dwindling. This is not surprising, given the recent exposure of the Bad Islands shenanigans. The budget is slowly abandoning its mission of militarizing the youth, and we are not surprised. Program 2, the 7 million set aside for Wi-Fi connectivity is unacceptable. The so-called safety kiosk is nothing but a total waste of money. In a visit to one of the safety kiosks in the CBD, it was reported that the safety kiosk was locked, and this is a daily experience in most areas. You can go to town, to Harare now, you would see exactly what I'm referring to. Or rather, this expensive machinery is meant for elite few areas like Paro North and Botasek. The MEC spoke about the police reservist and even put forward a Miagra budget for it. I understand such things happen when you take a civilian and ask him to lead community safety. I want to assist him because we want more police visibility on the ground. The MEC must train and professionalize the graduates of Chrysalis Academy to be able to do basic things like administration at police stations and making affidavits so that the police can go to the ground. Fund the Bambanani program so that we can have more crime-fighting structures. Fund CPFs so that we can have better functioning, resourced CPFs on the ground. The neighborhood watches can better function if they work hand in hand with CPFs and protected by the statute. I understand the MEC wants neighborhood watches under his watch to full control. Speaker, all community crime-fighting structures are needed. The neighborhood watches are doing a lot to gain work in some sections of the society. But are there other cases where they work alongside Metropolis and the Red Ends to evict homeless people? Just last week, there were 2 incidents where they reportedly treated bad the homeless people down Deval Road. We need crime-fighting structures to be harsh on criminals. We need them in the place and in the Cape Flats to deal with gangs assisting CPFs and police and not fighting homeless people. Lastly, Speaker, to prove this is a budget for campaigning, the budget for traveling of the MECs has been increased. And it brings more to the fact that, indeed, even the use of the money that will be used for K9 unit is something that they do not understand properly. Because with the K9 dogs, you don't only focus on drugs. You've got K9 dogs that are used for Siemens. You've got K9 dogs that are used for a number of different criminal activities, including firearms. So, indeed, we really need to work more harder, and the DA member in the standing committee needs to do some homework on how the K9 dogs operate. I thank you.
Order. Thank you, member. In the absence of the ACDP and the EFF, I see Minister Windy again. Reply.
Thank you very much, Speaker. And first of all, thank you very much for all of those that have taken part in this debate and this discussion. I think perhaps just on to the chairperson, Honourable Wenger, thank you very much for your contribution, not only in the oversight, but also in working committees and also the knowledge that you bring to this portfolio. It's really, really valued. And of course, continue to grow your knowledge in becoming a specialist in crime fighting And thank you very much. It's great to have you in this space and with that kind of knowledge being placed as a chairperson, as an oversight of this specific department. The points on the audits, I think, really stand out. And of course, we need to make sure that we continue to spend this money in accordance with the rules. And so very interestingly how it gets accused that the extra funding is a slush fund, but I will assure you that this money will be spent in accordance with the rules and the way that we have determined within the budget documents. It would be quite interesting, and I'll speak a little bit later about the Bambanani, and I wonder whether you can read that in any of the national documents at the moment. But we'll leave that question there for now. You also spoke about the safety awards, and yes, it was a great pleasure to give that award, the first one, the inaugural one this week, to Inspector Van Nooy, and from the Manenberg Police Station, someone that really goes above and beyond, and if you read his record, really an outstanding police officer, but specifically what highlighted was what he did around an emergency medical services person. He arrived where an emergency medical person, a lady, was actually attacked by 4 individuals as she was coming out of a home where she'd been called to for medical services, and she was attacked and robbed and stabbed, and Inspector Van Nooy jumped onto it, and by 10 o'clock the next day he had already effected the arrest, and those perpetrators are now in prison, 12 years in prison. And that highlights 2 things. One is, of course, real crime that is faced by the general public, but I mean, in a society where your emergency services are targeted, I think it's just incomprehensible how emergency services are targeted, and a female coming out who's offering an emergency service gets attacked. But it was really good to award him, and we call on everybody to highlight your crime-fighting heroes in this province so that we can recognize these people that really go above and beyond in making this a safer place. I'm not really going to focus on any of the other issues that you raised, but maybe perhaps the provincial government volunteers. And I think this is a very exciting program, and every single police station that I have visited have welcomed this with open arms. The interesting thing is that we've written the letter to the minister, and we still haven't had a reply yet on how we're going to implement it. But in our discussions with General Jula and the various police stations, we're going to just come up with a plan, even if we don't get that national support. Then coming on to the opposition, and listening to the items put on the table today in this budget debate from the opposition, I mean, some of these issues raised really astound me. When a statement is made that CPFs are not funded by or supported by this department. I mean, how long has the honourable member been the oversight of this specific department? In actual fact, CPFs in this province are supported more than in any other province. 2 million goes to the CPFs in this province, where if you look at the Eastern Cape, the CPFs get 200,000 from their provincial department.
Order, Minister, just 1 second. Honourable Wali.
Is the Minister prepared to take a question?
Minister Wali. The Minister is prepared. You may answer. You may put your question.
Can you confirm that the creation of CPFs as a statutory body is described in the Police Act and is therefore a responsibility of the police to form them and administer CPFs?
Thank you, Minister.
That is absolutely correct. It is within the Police Act. They have a board. They have the representation on that board. And in actual fact, I've already attended their board as a guest. The guests at that board meeting, which happened last week, were myself, Leonard Max, as a guest invited from the Minister's office, and Leonard Ramatlakani, as a Member of Parliament, was also invited to that board. But it is a police, as you say, the police board of CPFs. It is in the National Act, in the Police Act, and of course we don't have any direct relationship there other than a program that we have been instituting over the last few months where we really have been working with those CPFs from ground upwards, and that is where that 2 million of funding actually goes to those CPFs to enable them and help them in doing their job. Perhaps while on that point and the board, it was very interesting that at that meeting, when I arrived at the meeting and the advisor to the minister had to give a report, he gave a report on the gang unit, he gave a report on Bambanani. It was interesting that he was the one that was giving the report on Bambanani, seeing he was the MEC that actually closed down Bambanani, which was quite interesting. But then Leonard Ramatlakane, Speaker, this is the most interesting aspect.
Order.
This is the most interesting aspect of a body like a board of the CPFs, where the oversight body, which is Parliament, National Parliament and the Committee at National Parliament, that's the oversight body, to make sure that the executive is implementing programs and projects, the money is being spent properly, etc., that the oversight body came to brief the CPFs on Bambanani and how it was going to be rolled out. So I thought that was quite interesting, and I actually asked the question specifically in the meeting as how this worked, and it was told to me that it works because this individual comes from the oversight body. And I thought, well, that's interesting, because I don't know if that's exactly how government should be working. But then it goes a little bit further, because once I started asking these questions, you could see the tone of the meeting changed a bit, because then suddenly people realized that this was a little bit of a difficult scenario to be sitting in, because we're talking about 36 million rand here. We're talking about 36 million rand, and of course, if we roll this out to, as Leonard Ramatlakane said, they are going to be appointing 1,500, so I already know how many, 1,500 Bambananis. They've got 36 million, that's 4,000 rand per month that these individuals are going to be paid. It's going to be interesting to see if that's the kind of money that they are going to be paid in every month, how that money is going to be transferred, and what oversight is going to happen with that money when it gets transferred. Will it be transferred to the CPF board, I wonder? How are they going to, from the government's point of view, transfer this money? We have already asked whether we are going to be involved at all as docs, whether I'm going to be involved at all as the MEC. If I think about the dog unit, they are going to totally exclude us. But the big point that I put on the table that was found very, very interesting by the CPF individuals was, I said, do you know that the lead up to the closing of this unit, do you remember the marches to this legislature? I remember them very well. People marching here to this legislature, to the MEC, then Leonard Ramatlakane, saying, close these things down. They are not working. They are destroying society. You are paying cadres. Those marches, go and have a look at the records on what actually happened in how Bambanani was closed down, and the process that happened, and the absolute mess that it created out there. And 1,500 Bambananis versus, at the moment, the neighborhood watches, which are volunteers across this province, where we are already on 17,000. Run properly, run effectively, run efficiently. I've met with so many of them. The department does an amazing job in supporting these volunteer organizations, and really, it is going to be very interesting to see how the ANC plays this rollout of, I want to say, political canvassing campaign for their political party going forward. Then let's talk about the honourable member raising the issue of chrysalis and youth safety programs, to say we must stop wasting our money on chrysalis and youth safety programs. Does she understand what chrysalis does? Does she understand what these youth safety programs do? It was interesting at chrysalis. It was interesting at chrysalis on Saturday at the graduation of 190 young women. And I'm not sure where the honourable member was, because she was invited to come along to this graduation. And again, when invites get put out from our side, they are not adhered to or not even followed through.
Order. Order, member. Honourable Wiley. Order. Honourable Wiley.
Will the Minister take a question?
Minister Windy, are you prepared? The Minister is prepared.
Deputy Speaker.
Order. Order.
Deputy Speaker, in light of the comments that have been made by the ANC to close Chrysalis down because it's discredited, can the Minister please tell us who was on the guest list and did attend Saturday at the graduation of...
Minister Windy.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you very much for that question. Chrysalis was attended not only by General Jula himself, and the discussion that happened afterwards with the HOD and the General on how Chrysalis can be used to help in our police stations, because we haven't had a reply yet from the National Minister on our offer of support in our police stations, but General Jula was very interested. But more importantly than that, 4 heads of departments from other provinces attended Saturday's event. 4 heads of departments to come and see what this program is like, the benefits of this program. And it is an amazing program that makes a huge difference in many, many people's lives across this province. Across this province. Then, of course, the holiday season youth safety programs. The Honourable Member says we should stop wasting money on youth safety programs in the holiday season. I mean, can you believe a statement like that? This is when young children out of school are on the streets and most susceptible in this crime-ridden space that we have to deal with. These are the perfect kind of programs that need to put in place in order to make sure that we make this a safer province.
Order. Honourable Lekker, just 1 second, please. Minister Wale.
Will the Minister take a question, please?
Minister Windy, are you prepared to take another question?
Will the Minister give this House the assurance that Chrysalis graduates will never be deployed at a political rally as was done under Ibrahim Rasool?
Minister.
Yes, I definitely will give that assurance. I definitely will. Well, no, Rasool's not back. Rasool's trying to get back, but he's telling too many lies to be taken seriously. Speaker, thank you very much. Then, of course, the Honourable Member went through all of these programs. She calls a slush fund. And then she says this slush fund will be used for a dog unit. This slush fund will be used for Wi-Fi. This slush fund will be used for community safety projects. This is a slush fund that is going to be used for community safety projects. She said that. And it's exactly what this money is going to be used for. It's exactly what this appropriation is used for. This appropriation in this budget is used to help to make the Western Cape a safer province, to put programs in place to deal with the issues out there that are not being covered at the moment. She had a whole lot to say about the canine unit. It's very interesting. Obviously, she's visited it once, and our canine unit will be set up and will be focusing, because dogs can only do 2 things. They cannot do all sorts of things. She spoke about the different things that they can do. Our dogs will be trained to sniff out drugs. They will be trained to sniff out explosives and arms. They will be trained to sniff out abalone, because we will use them also for poaching. And they will be specific for the areas that they are going to be deployed to. And this is just another operation that will be put in place to minimize or to start to really deal with some of the big issues that our society are finding out there that are affecting their every single day lives. So it's very interesting, the comments that are made by someone who's probably been on this committee for a very long time, shows that she actually does not understand this committee. She needs to come along to our events, come and see what happens at those events, come and meet those people, those men and women that are working very, very, very hard to make this a safer province. And with that, I want to thank the committee for the role that they play. I want to thank the chairperson, and I specifically want to thank the Minister of Finance in this province and my colleagues in Cabinet for actually allowing this adjustment to take place so that we can make this a safer province. And lastly, can I say to the hardworking officials in the department, thank you very much for all that you do every single day to make this a safer province. Thank you very much.
Order. That concludes, Honourable Lekker, you've had your turn. That concludes the debate on this vote. We will suspend for a couple of minutes before we start with the 4th order. The House is suspended.